This is going to be a short little tutorial to how to use KSTS. It's a KSP mod that basically allows you to automate your um, deployment and transport rocket launches. There's not a lot of information I found about it, because it's a fairly old mod, but it's a good mod. So as I was going through my career playthrough, I just wanted to put a little video together to demonstrate how it works. Starting off, this is the window you see. So we're basically going to sit and pick our deployment rocket here with the top decoupler that just has our payload that we're going to sit and take into space here. I'm using the NRAP mod that basically gives you a bulk mass you can basically just put on top of your rocket as payload. So the key with KSTS is basically any part that you want to deliver as your bulk payload. Basically, you can't use it all, right? You can't have any fuel, you can't stage it at all. So what you do is you basically have to have a decoupler or have something that basically acts as a separator that says this is the part that I'm going to keep and not use. So it just makes the mod so it allows to track basically what part of your rocket stage is your payload you're taking to orbit. So I just put together through a little craft here, 3 metric ton payload. We've got time acceleration here is basically going to get up to orbit real quick. I think I'm targeting a 75 by 75 kilometer orbit just to sit and demonstrate how it works here. So you can see accelerating up to orbit. Basically going to circularize here in just a second. And burning. Yep, and you can see I didn't quite have enough propellant, so just for demonstration purposes, I just turn on the infinite propellant cheat. And I'm just going to basically circularize it just a little bit more. And so you can see right now it's basically been recording this entire time. So what's going to happen is when we get up into orbit, we're basically, once we're happy with our orbit, right, you got to get above 70 kilometers, in this case for Kerbal for it to work. And once you basically, okay, you can see there now in the bottom left corner of the window, it says release payload. So we're going to click release payload. And what'll happen is basically it'll dump that off. As soon as you release it, it basically, okay, do you want to record this mission or not? And you can basically stop and save, and boom, there's your mission that you can basically pull up at any time. And that's basically what I'm demoing here next. I built a little dummy payload, just a little satellite. So what you're going to do is you're going to go back to Space Center. You're going to pick the mission that you want to sit and run. So you're going to pick a deploy mission. You can pick in this case I called it test deploy craft, or excuse me, you're going to pick the payload that you want and then what flight you want that you recorded. So in this case, as long as your payload is less than whatever you delivered to orbit, and you can put it to any orbit less than or equal to your recorded mission profile. You can, for just a simple orbit, or you can get really complex and change a bunch of parameters. This isn't meant to be all-encompassing, but it's basically just kind of a quick and dirty reference for people to then be able to play with instead of clicking buttons and saying, why doesn't this work? So you have to sit in the Space Center view, otherwise you can't be focused on the vessel when it's running. It's just a quirk of the mod. This is all recorded in the help section, the little help button there of the mod, but it's easier, I think, just for demonstration purposes, just to have a video. So we're going to come up on time acceleration here. Okay, we see it has deployed our little test satellite. We're just going to go to the tracking station here and go up into orbit and basically see it. And so there you go. This is for the transport type contract. So basically, satellites, anything unmanned works really well for deploy missions. If you want to build just like a space station core or something, use a deploy mission. And then next year we'll go in and show what a transport mission does because it slightly functions similarly, but also a little different. So you can see here I basically made a Kerbal X replica. And basically, you just have to put a little bit of some resource type that you're carrying. It doesn't have to be everything, as you can see right there. It can just be just a little bit just to start the recording process. And you'll launch a space as usual, and you'll basically get up to whatever target orbit you want to. So in this case, we're trying to go to another space station. And I'll show the test craft here that I made, just a little simple space station with a bunch of empty resource ports, so you can sit and have, any resource in the game basically that you're modded, stock, whatever, it'll work for. The important thing to note with this is you have to, for transport missions, you have to have you have to have matching docking ports between whatever craft you're trying to launch or record the mission profile for, and then your target destination. And you also have to, again, the orbit you're going into has to be higher than or equal to where you're trying to go. So in this case, I've got it at 71,500 meters. As you can see, I have some open resource port, just a little space station hab part here. And you can see I've got the Clampotron docking port. That'll be important. So when you go back to record your mission, you need to have matching docking ports. Otherwise, it's not going to work. It's not going to take. It's just going to show as an invalid mission type. Going back to Space Center here. And basically, once you get these recorded, it doesn't actually move. It doesn't spawn a craft or anything. It basically spawns the resources and/or Kerbals directly onto your target. So in this case, I'm just picking the target space station, the mission profile. You can see I've got the matching docking port, the planet, and the altitude that I'm going to go to. Right, the altitude that my mission has been rated for, if you want to call it that, is higher than where my destination. So you see here, I'm basically just playing with the bulk resources that you want to move. As long as that's less than or equal to your payload, it'll show as green, and then you can launch that. And there's got to be room on your vessel. So in this case, I'm also picking some Kerbals. So I had an unmanned capsule that had a little remote guidance unit on it, so I can pick up to 3 Kerbals in that Mark III capsule. And you can see basically, again, same thing. Don't throw your Kerbals on a mission because basically it's trying to simulate the real time of the mission running. But if your Kerbals aren't at the Space Center where it goes to grab them and spawn them in your space station or wherever you're putting them, it's a bad day. So just sit in the Space Center view or go do something else. Leave them alone. Again, this is all in the directions of the mod, but I just think it's clear just to show what's going on. So we have our 3 Kerbals that have been basically up in orbit. In this case, I'm going to try something else because I've never played with this before. You can also bring Kerbals down too. So in this case, I'm picking 2 Kerbals to go up on the next mission and 1 Kerbal to come back down. And if you have a piloted craft, you have to have a return leg, right? So you launch a capsule up into orbit, and then you record your mission profile. But if you have a pilot on board, you have to land that thing. If it's a remote one, you don't have to land it. You just can't bring any Kerbals down with you then when you're doing one of these transport profiles. So in this case, since I basically launched the capsule and brought the capsule back, I can also bring Kerbals back down. And that's basically what this is just showing here is, hey, I've moved Kerbals and resources back and forth. So really quick, kind of dirty, a little bit more than I anticipated, but there you go.